That's cool.
Um,
I'd love for someone to tune in right now to be like, "What the hell are you doing?"
yeah, yeah.
Hey, everybody, how's it going? Portable Trevor
Hey,
here, and today we have the one and only Isaac Deitz. What's up, Isaac?
hey, that's me.
That
How you
is you.
doing?
And
Yeah.
so Isaac is a very special guest to me. I know I'm going to say all my guests are special, but Isaac is extremely special because it's kind of like without him, I wouldn't be here in Atlanta doing what I'm doing because he kickstarted this thing called the Thunderdome, which is why Nathan Mowry's here. And so you're kind of the guy that started this whole thing. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
say thank you before we get started.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. It's been cool.
so on your thumbnail, Isaac, I put that you're a pro DIY filmmaker. And I don't know if
Yeah.
you've ever called yourself that, but would you mind explaining that?
Yeah, I love explaining the title that you gave me. I could try and take a guess of what you meant by that, but I think it's actually pretty
Totally.
accurate. When I read that, I was like, oh, that's pretty good. If DIY is like do it yourself, then it's DIY is usually attached to like do it yourself repairs and stuff like that. But like, I really think that solo filmmaking is going to be the next phase. And I'm not saying
Mhm.
as to replace how film is being made right now, but
Mhm.
as an alternative. So in music, you have orchestras and you have like 80 people in the orchestra. And then it was like hundreds of years later that the folk artist came about with just the guitar. And I think that that is the next generation of film. There's at least a new genre that's going to come up. And I've been thinking this for a few years now. And I think actually this whole quarantine thing, this COVID thing is actually going to spark that. I think people are starting to realize what's possible in making films by yourself, or at least with very minimal crew.
Mhm.
Because we're coming from the YouTube generation of all these people that had to figure out doing their own audio and figure out their own lighting and figure out their own editing and stuff. And then those people go into film industry and then they go into just like directing and they're not touching cameras and stuff. And I think I think there's a place for all of it. I'm not like people always think I'm just shooting down one of them, but I'm not. I'm just saying that us YouTuber types are it's kind of boring if we're not as hands-on. And I
Mhm.
think that that's what's coming up in film soon. And so I would like to say that I am a solo filmmaker. I have done the orchestra, I have done the big crews, and I enjoy that just the same. But there's a difference between writing a song and then freestyling and jamming. And I think that both need a place. And I think film is just starting to figure that out.
So have you always appreciated doing solo stuff more, or did you start out doing like more orchestrated stuff where you were like, that's my goal. I want to be in that huge group. That's like where I want to be. And then you figured out, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Like I'm
So I
rambling.
started. I bought a camera when I was 10 years old. I bought it on layaway.
Mhm.
It's $50. It was a toy camera you plug into your VCR, and it would just be me and or a few friends or a friend, and we would make skits. And I would make those from like 10 years old to like 16 years old. I made a DVD of the compilation of all these skits, and I sold them basically like a mixtape. Like sold them out of my backpack. Sold 100 of them. And then I made another one when I was 18, rented out a theater. It was the same idea. And so I was doing solo filmmaking for the first decade of doing film for me. And then I was reading all these books, and this is how filmmakers do it. This is what Spielberg's doing because he was the name director that, everyone knew. So I was like looking up him and reading his biographies and stuff and going, this is what I need. I need to aspire to be a director because I'm not a director until I've directed about 80 people on a set, So
Mhm.
I aspired to that for a long time. I moved to Atlanta about 12 years ago. And then I worked on bigger sets and I was striving to do like the union type filmmaking. And I tried that for like 3 or 4 years. And I got to the point where I was like, I don't think this is what I want to do. Like, this isn't me. So actually it started solo. And then I tried out the regular way. And then I'm just going back to this, but now knowing why I'm going back to this and having learned a lot of stuff in the traditional way of filmmaking and applying that to solo filmmaking and saying, okay, or at least minimalist filmmaking. Because of course you could do films with like a couple people or a few people. So just knowing what you need on set and knowing what the roles are and stuff like that is really helpful. But I don't see the need for certain roles. I know somebody in the union that is on a cherry picker next to a light, and that's their job. That's their whole job. 14-hour days on a cherry picker next to a light. In case it blows, they could change the bulb. So they literally are staying on that cherry picker, just sitting there, eating sandwiches and using the bathroom up there just in case a light blows. And I think that's a crazy waste of money.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's what the union does, is waste money. And they do that very well. And I know that's a strong opinion. Of course, they do other things well, but I think there's mansions and you could build mansions. And now this is the invention of the tiny house. Tiny houses aren't trying to be mansions. They're not even competing with mansions. So mansion builders shouldn't even be threatened by the tiny house builders. It's just, I don't want to go in debt every time I make art. I don't want to wait 5 years I want to make a film every 5 years. I want to start making films as much as they come to me, if not more. So I'm trying to figure out how to just be able to make a film anytime I think of one, instead of just going in debt.
So what's a film that you've done where you would say that you've taken on the most roles?
Oh, I've done a bunch of short films where it's just me,
Mhm.
me and a couple actors. But I did audio, I did DPing, I did camera work, editing, and just the whole nine. And I actually love that. And I think some people get offended when they hear that because they think that I'm like saying that I'm better than everyone else. It's just that for every role, you're spending at least $100. So at a certain point, you're just saying, okay, do I need somebody to read the script along with the actor? Or can I just know the script myself and check with them? Script supervisor is a great luxury, but it's not a necessity, and things like
Mhm.
that. So yeah, I've
Very
done.
recently, I did a film with Matt Dickstein, and I was a script supervisor. And then as the film went on, I ended up being a PA and the slate guy because
Mhm.
he was like, "We don't need it. Like, this is way more important."
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that happens a lot, especially in indie films. You go in for one role, then you come out the other way. And I think that's a large
Mhm.
frustration with a lot of people. They're like very frustrated at getting on a film set and then doing something that they weren't asked to do in the originally. And I think the difference is I think you can ask the DP to also make the sandwiches. There's nothing wrong with that. Just ask them up front. I think that's the whole difference. That way you're not blindsiding them and saying, hey, by the way, I would expect this of you as well. It's more of like, hey, I'm making a film this weekend and I need somebody to make sandwiches and also run camera. Are you cool with that? And then you could go, I think that's going to take away from my DPing ability or sandwich making ability. And so you could have that discussion. But people, when I said I was going to make my feature film with a low budget, I was going to DP myself, I got comments that people are saying people are going to have to do more than they were asked to do. And that's not true. Everyone on that film did exactly what they were asked of. I asked them to fill more roles than traditional filmmaking. But I asked them up front. It wasn't, I didn't throw it at them. That's the difference.
Mhm.
And I think that's the big frustration as well, is just like throwing a role on somebody,
Yeah. We got a question, Isaac. What is the biggest film you directed with how many actors and actresses?
So have you seen Avengers? So I made
Adventures?
a
No.
film a couple years before Avengers came out. I'm kidding. Just trying to make it
Oh, you
seem
said
like
I
my
thought you
birth.
said adventures, not adventure.
Yeah. Uh, so the biggest film as far as biggest as many roles in the film. I just am finishing literally today my feature film Student Teacher, and I think we had about 20 people in the cast. We had about 20 extras, 20, 30 extras. Actually, probably
Mhm.
total of like 50 extras because of different scenes. A crew of about 8 to 15, depending on the day.
Mhm.
I would say that's the biggest thing, as far as it was 2 weeks and I was directing and DPing and producing the thing throughout. I have done music videos with about 450 extras,
Wow.
and
What song
things
was it?
like that. What's that?
What was the band and song?
The band was Family Force 5, and it was a video called Zombie. So we had extras. Actually, part of our Kickstarter campaign was they had a lot of fans. So what we did is we said, hey, if you want to be in this, you could pay to be in this. So people drove and flew from all over America to be in this film, and people paying
People
to be in
flew?
it actually paid for the film or the music video. What's that?
Wow. People
Yeah,
flew?
people were doing like 16-hour flights or 16-hour drives. They were coming from Texas and
Wow.
Ohio, all over. It was wild. And so yeah, we
So
had 450 people, I think, on camera. Then I think there was a 600 people total, with all the parents and stuff like that came in. So it was wild. It was crazy.
that's amazing. So let's talk a little bit more about Family Force 5 because I think you told me that's kind of what kickstarted your career, wasn't it? Was kind of hanging out with those guys.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of milestones in my career, and I think that
Hmm.
was a very big one for me. They were so House of Heroes was the band that preceded them that I worked with a lot more, and
Hmm.
I worked with a lot, and they trusted me before anyone trusted me. So Family Force 5 is how I kind of got a certain following. But House of Heroes was the band that trusted me with my first music video, my first live video, my first tour video. When YouTube came out, the year YouTube came out, I went to House of Heroes and I was like, let's try and do like weekly videos, like maybe like a weekly documentary and stuff like that. This is before there was a term video blog. I mean, the term video blog was way earlier, but it wasn't a household name. And so I got a YouTube channel. I was just making these weekly things, and then Family Force 5 saw that, and then they said, "Hey, we want you to take you on tour to do this." And so I started doing weekly videos for them, and then that blew up because we did like a web series, a 30-episode web series called Really Real Show, and I was like a character on it in a certain degree, and it was a comedy, and it was very fun. And then eventually I started doing music videos for them and stuff like that too. So,
We actually watched a couple episodes the other night as a house.
oh really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
We watched the furniture store guy. He
Oh
had some kind of
yeah,
like catchy commercial,
yeah. It's like a
and
viral.
like, do you remember that episode pretty
Oh
well?
yeah, I
Like,
remember all of those.
yeah.
All of
So,
those episodes, I pretty much memorized. Like, I mean, that's episode number 12. Like, I just, yeah, yeah. That was a wild one. So basically, there's a guy, Sammy Stevens, that went pretty viral. He was even in a Family Guy episode, like, or a
really,
parodied in Family Guy. Like, he was viral enough at the time. But it's funny how viral, like something goes viral, and he was like on Ellen and Family Guy and stuff, and then now it's like Sammy who. Um, it's just crazy how viral you're, just like a flash in the pan, no matter what. Like, so
mhm.
it's like Gangnam Style, what you know?
I
So
literally
yeah,
forgot about it until you told me Gangnam Style.
right, yeah, it's like the thing you can't stop hearing about, and then the next thing you know, it's like we're on to the next thing, you know.
Hopefully, it's like
So
coronavirus. What?
I know, hopefully that'd be nice, but I don't think so. I think they're gonna probably come up with a campaign like Never Forget or something like that. It's my, but
Never
I don't
forget.
think we're gonna forget this pretty quickly.
Hopefully.
Like the
So,
whole entire world. Anyway.
yeah. So you're working with Family Force 5, and were you still living in New York at this time?
Yeah,
Just
so
like kind
I
of
was
touring with them?
yeah, I started touring them when I was like 20 years old, something like that.
Mhm.
And then eventually was on the road so much. Like I remember one year I think I was on the road for like 9 months straight. And we were on the road so much that I just like left my stuff at my parents' house and was just touring around and stuff like that. And then eventually the guitarist of Family Force 5, his uncle really liked the Really Real shows, the web series that we did. And he saw them, and he was a video person in Atlanta. And he said, if you move to Atlanta, I'll give you some freelance gigs. And so I moved here like in 2009 to pursue that. So there was a lot of things connected to Family Force 5 and stuff like that. It was pretty cool.
Was
So
that weird moving to the South instead of, somewhere like New York? Was that a weird culture shock to you?
it was because in the North, I don't think I cared or knew the difference. I didn't even know the Mason-Dixon line. I didn't even know the term Mason-Dixon line. Like, I knew we won the war, and I knew that that's over with, like, it's done. And so I moved to the South, and it's like a different America, or at least it's kind of like Texas, where they're like their own country. Like I was like, whoa, like I didn't even know there's a difference between Georgia and New York, but apparently in Georgia, they totally have drawn the line in the sand and said, it's just funny because I really didn't see a difference between Georgia, New York, and Chicago. And then I moved here, and then I'm like, oh, they care. They really care. So there was a culture shock for sure. And I definitely was, I didn't like Atlanta at first. I thought it
Really?
just took me a while, man. Took me a while. Now I love it.
And you
But
moved before the big, film boom here,
I
didn't
moved
you?
pretty much the year or the year before, because
Wow.
people would consider the film boom to be like when Walking Dead started filming. I think that was
Mhm.
2008. And I moved here 2009, like February. So it was like like I feel like I just caught the wave. And so when the film boom came to Atlanta, like 5 years later, like in 5 years after I was a little bit more established as like a editor and filmmaker and stuff, when people were looking for filmmakers, they were like, oh, hey, you're established Atlanta filmmaker. So it like really worked out for me.
So I bet that was really cool to be like, "Yeah, I'm an Atlanta filmmaker," at the time, especially since it was, like, rising.
It didn't feel as connected, honestly. Like I didn't really catch that Atlanta was going to be so big in film. I just knew it was a bigger
Mm.
city than upstate New York that I was in from Syracuse. So there was it was a bigger city, so I thought there was just more opportunity because it was a bigger city. But it wasn't until way later that I started realizing that it was because Atlanta was doing a lot of incentives for film and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, that's cool. I lucked out here.
That is cool. So you moved to Atlanta, did you immediately start the Thunderdome as soon as you, like, touched base here? Or was that
I
like, a year later?
It was about a year and a half later. I moved here 2009, and then I moved to California for like a summer, and then I moved back, and that's when I moved back is when I started the Thunderdome in 2010. So,
Nice. So how
yeah.
did that was this like an epiphany that hit you, or was this, like, something you thought of over time?
It was something I thought of over time. I think a lot of my best ideas have been stolen from musicians. So my dad was a musician, and I've done videos for musicians since I was like 14. And so I started watching musicians and how, because music is a more established genre than film.
Mhm.
So I was trying to learn and take from them and what they're doing as a community and musicians. So like the idea of like open mic nights and the idea of bands getting together to live in one house. So like the idea of if you had a four-piece band and you get a 5-bedroom house, you have the 5th bedroom for a band practice room, and all the roommates are cool with one of the rooms being designated for band practice. And then also there's mutual beneficial where it's like, hey, I'm practicing bass today. Do you want to practice your drums? And so they'd go into the room together. And so I saw that a couple times, and I was like, why aren't filmmakers doing this? Because film, I don't think it should be, but it's sometimes it feels pretty isolated or competitive. And so I think there's something really cool about like having another filmmaker in the house that kind of understands the idea of like getting a camera rental for the weekend and wanting to practice it. And it's like, hey, Trevor, you want to go outside and like let me practice the camera and stuff? And then you're asking questions like, oh, does it do this? And we're kind of like brainstorming and figuring out the limits of the camera. And then you're
Mhm.
ready for the next shoot the next day. So like that's kind of where I started rolling that idea around in my head. I think it was like 2006 or 2007 when I was like, oh, that'd be so cool. Like when I move out one day, I'm going to get a house and get a bunch of filmmakers. Um, And so, yeah, it worked out and started growing. And then we started doing the open mic night kind of things for filmmakers, like 5 minutes or less, open screenings, different things like that, outdoor movie nights. And it was just really cool. And everyone in the house was cool with leaving the garage open for a studio to film in, and then also a movie theater room and stuff like that. So,
And to
yeah, it
clarify,
ended up
the
being,
Thunderdome is not an arena or anything. It's actually just a house.
yeah,
Like you're actually in the Thunderdome right now.
that's right. Yeah, this is the Thunderdome. It's a kind of an artist complex where it's
Mhm.
this house, the house next door, and then an RV out on the because we're on a dead end street. So we made the breaker box give us 30 amps to the RV so we could plug in our RV there and rent some power to that. So yeah, I think we got 11 or 12 people here,
Wow.
which is great. And then we still have our theater room. In fact, they're premiering a movie right next door, or like literally on the other side of this room in the
Oh,
garage.
nice.
Because we all live with like actors and filmmakers. So one of our actors actually just premiered a movie, so they were all watching that, and I was like, I can't do that. I got to do this podcast thing. So
So, this question came to me a few minutes ago. So, and we've talked about like I think you called it exclusivity in filmmaking, where and you were talking about like you get a camera and you say, "Hey Trevor, let's go film something. I want to show you," and I like ask questions.
mhm.
I remember you talking about this during leg day one time, where somebody may not want to teach you how to use a camera because they're afraid that you're going to do something with that knowledge that you have. Does that make sense? I know we've
Yeah,
talked about this before.
I've met people in the past that I would be like, "Hey, that's a really cool look you got there. Like, what lenses did you use?" And they say, "Yeah, I don't really share what lenses I use because that's kind of my fingerprint or my brand. So I'm not gonna really share that." And I kind of get that. Like, I got it. Like, when I heard that at first, I started going, you know what? Maybe I should be a little bit more close fisted with my ideas and stuff like that. And of course, you meet a billion writers that will like send you a script, but you have to sign an NDA before you read the script. And, like they copyright it and I just think there's so many ideas out there that like I've sent my script to so many people. In fact, in my casting call for my feature film, I actually sent out the full script to like I think we had 1,200 like open call auditions come in because we had a really good casting director. So I said, hey, like I don't want you to just sign up for this film unless you know what it's about. So if you want to read the whole script, here it is. And that's actually bared a lot of fruit for me to not be so close-fisted. A lot of people actually have come up to me. Like one guy came to leg day like a year or two later and he said, actually my girlfriend read that whole script and I thought it was the best script we've ever read. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. It was, I think, the best one they've read as far as auditions. I don't know, but I think that if you are close-fisted, you're not an artist. You made a formula and that's it. And you're depending on that formula to be your cash cow for the rest of your life. But like if you're an artist, you're flowing with ideas. At
Mhm.
least if you're like an artist that's like practicing to not be afraid and fear of failure and stuff like that. And eventually you start getting somebody steals one idea, cool, I'll make another one. Like it's like a farmer like hoarding crops. It's like it's going to grow out of the ground. You're not even doing anything. You're just putting it in. You're doing a lot, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like a lot of people are really stealing ideas, and maybe I'm wrong about
Mhm.
that, but
And
I've actually
anyone that
seen,
says, filmmakers, like, should hold like, anyone that would say something like, Wes Anderson doesn't give his secrets away, like, Roger Deakins has an entire website dedicated to how he lights stuff.
right, right. And that's how most people know who Roger Deakins is. Not entirely, but like it put him on the map in a certain way. In
Mhm,
fact, a lot of people are actually getting a name for themselves because they're sharing their information. They're
mhm,
sharing how they're doing stuff. That yeah, I just really think that um like if you and I had the same exact script, if I wrote my script and I gave it to you, we would come out with 2 different films, like 2 completely different films.
Mhm.
And that's like something beautiful about that. Like, look at the Fire Festival last year or a couple years ago. They put out 2 films at the same week and it ended up blowing up. I think it helped because when you
Mhm.
watch a good film, you want to watch as much information on that film and you start browsing and rabbit trailing and stuff like that. In fact, if probably the best thing I could do for my film is probably share the script and say, make your version. And if there's 30 versions of the same film, then people are actually going to be more interested to compare them and see where the deviations are per director and stuff. So I know that like I have a stronger opinion about that. I know that there's a lot of people that would love to debate me on that. And I think that I could see an argument for both sides. I really could. But I just I'm not afraid of somebody taking my ideas because where did you get your ideas? Where did you get this idea to podcast? You're the first person to ever podcast. You're the first
I'm not
person
the
to do a
first person
live
to
stream.
podcast.
Yeah, yeah, right, exactly. You saw a few enough. You saw enough podcasts where eventually you started going. That's something that I would like to do. The thing is when you're doing you, eventually you inspire people to do something similar, and then what happens is there's a copy and then a deviation, a copy and a deviation. The thing that we don't want is people just copying straight up, like literally taking your film and uploading it onto their channel. But if you deviate from it, that's what a meme is. That's what hip hop is. That's what a lot of music and a lot of art is they say yes and yes to the old generation and what all these artists are doing, but I'm also going to add on to that and iterate and deviate from that. Like, look at Tarantino. All of his stuff is copied and it's a remix of all the art that he loves. And that's what makes it. But that's like more obvious and more like on the nose. But that's what everyone's doing. That's what Scorsese's doing. That's what Spielberg's doing. You watch enough old films, you'll start seeing that in the new films. And so to me, I feel like as an artist, once you make the thing, that's yours, but all the copies and deviations from that thing are not. And I know that that's like doesn't make money and doesn't, or maybe it does, but it just is. I don't know. I think that that's how art works. That's how ballet works. That's how life works. That's how broccoli and lightning and it's all fractals. And art is fractals, and money stops fractals. So that's
There's a beautiful video that you showed me. Everything is a remix.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Anyone that's listening, like I highly recommend that you watch that. If you've ever been discouraged that, what's the point of trying if I'm not original? Like
Right.
my thing is the 80s. Like I love the aesthetic of the 80s. Heck, my podcast is the 80s themed.
Right. Yeah.
But I've never had anyone come up to me like, "Hey man, I would watch your stuff, but you kind of are stealing the 80s. Like like everything you're
Right.
doing is from the 80s." Like no one's ever said that to me.
But
It's I made it unique.
even if they did, like whatever, like that's not
Yeah.
your audience. You want to get the audience that likes the 80s. Like
Mhm.
I've actually was thinking about this while doing the final tweaks of my film is if I listen to if I listen to every note that somebody said after watching my film, I wouldn't have a film. Because I've
Mhm.
had people say, this is my favorite scene. And then another person say, this scene you need to cut completely. And then I had another person say that about different scenes. And then people say, you need to take out this line. You should take out this. You should take out this. You should take out this. And it's like, what do you want? Like a no film? Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, and I don't even think it's that bad. It's not like they're trying to get me to take out stuff that like is objectively bad. They're actually stuff that other people like. So
Mhm.
who are you going to listen to? David Fincher, who I love, he always says like, what does he say? I didn't make it for you. Like if somebody says, oh, I didn't like Fight Club or I didn't like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. He's like, well, I didn't make it for you. I made it for the people that like this kind of stuff. And you're making your podcast for the people that like this kind of thing,
Mhm.
so I think just do
And I
you.
remember I was working at an ad agency and like we were sharing like what we were doing over the weekend one time and he asked me, "Oh, Trevor, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm making a horror film." And he was like, "Why would you do that? I hate horror." And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm not making it for you. I'm making it because I like horror movies.
Right. It's like, golly, my gosh.
Also, if people that have watched your film and are making these mental notes, I feel like you're not really watching the movie also. You're just like
Well,
trying to find flaws.
yeah, I mean, I will be fair, like a lot of the feedback has been in the context of a screener. So like
Mm,
it was, but that's after a while I started realizing that, and a friend told me this who's directed a few features. He said, listen to the choir, not the solo artist. So like if the whole audience, if you got 50 people saying like I didn't get it, then like listen to that. But if they're saying, "Hey, I love this," and then one person's like, "Take out that last scene, it's too on the nose," then you're like, "Okay, well, other people loved it, so I don't know how much I'm gonna really, you know, like listen to every single buddy."
I guess it's like
I
getting a 99% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, I mean,
right,
I no one should, but if somebody was like, like very loyal to Rotten Tomatoes, and they're like, oh well, there was 1% of people that didn't like it, so I'm not gonna go watch it.
right, yeah, totally.
Mm,
Yeah, but it is easy as an artist, especially to listen to the negative. And I think
right.
that that's what a lot of times stops artists from making art. Is we just are always listening to that one voice or that one comment or that one dislike. You could have 1,000 likes on a YouTube video, then you have like 2 dislikes, and you're like, oh, I want to go to their house and explain to them why there's an audio pop and stuff. And they could have just been like browsing other things like how to make a garden in your backyard. And then this video pops up. And then they're like, I don't want this to show up in my feed. So they dislike it. You don't know the whole story. So it's like,
Mhm.
listen to the choir essentially in that.
I remember when I was a kid, like, and granted, like almost all my early YouTube videos are pretty bad, like
Yeah,
objectively at this point. But I remember one time, because I was like a very fragile, insecure high school kid, I made a
sure.
video and I got one comment. Everybody was telling me, like, Trevor, this is hilarious. This is so good. And I got
Right.
one comment and it just said, you're gay. And I was just like, "Oh, man, maybe this wasn't that good." And
Right.
years
Yeah.
later, I was like, "That was so stupid. Why did I listen to that guy?"
Yeah, and also screw you because there's a lot of like to that commenter. It's like there's that doesn't mean my film's bad because there's a lot of gay filmmakers that are really good. So what are you trying to say? Like,
Well, like, I guess I come from the South where, like,
yeah,
this
well,
sucks, but,
also
like, a lot of
back
people
then, yeah, that
but it was the whole thing. So, when do
yeah.
you think criticism is important when it's, like, not needed?
I don't I think it's really important to know that art is what art really is it's very, very important, but it's not everything.
Mhm.
Like you're not making like a medicine that could possibly kill somebody if you get it wrong. You're not doing brain surgery where it's like if you're objectively wrong on your process, you can kill people. You're making art. You're making a video to make people laugh, hopefully. And so the big thing is like, well, why? What is their criticism, and what are they really trying to say? A lot. I've found that the people that criticize the most are the people that make the least because they're sitting down and what they're doing is they're storing up a ton of book knowledge on making art. So like I've read every book and I've been to film school for 4 years and I've watched every commentary that David Fincher ever did, and so I know everything about making films. But they don't know how to do it on the field. They've never been there. So like it's very easy to train your brain to know when somebody made a mistake, but it's a different thing to be able to avoid those mistakes on the moment when it starts raining and you only have one more take. Those sorts of things are only people that experience people or only things that experienced people would really understand. And those people usually will watch a film and go, oh man, I can't believe you got good audio in there on a moving car. Like, good job on you because I've done that before. But the people that read the books and they watch the YouTube videos on how to make films and they don't make films, to me, it's like reading about English or like reading about Spanish your whole life, but never actually having a conversation. Like, how good do you think you're going to be? And you could be sitting there and watch all these movies of, you know, Americans going over to Mexico to talk and going, they totally did not put the right word in front of the other right word, and they did it out of order. And it's like, just chill, dude. Like once you go over there, as long as what you were trying to communicate was communicated, it doesn't matter. So if I wanted to make you laugh on a film, and you laugh, what's the problem?
Mhm.
Like, who cares if the you know, like the camera shaking and stuff. The thing about camera shakes and continuity and audio pops, the whole thing about that is those are distractions that could possibly get in the way of the objective. But sometimes I think actually the majority of the time when it comes to a non-filmmaking audience, it doesn't distract them from the objective. So like an electrician is trained to come in to my house and he could see the electric I did on my garbage disposal and he could tell me what's wrong with it. Okay. You
Mhm.
walk in, you're just going to turn on the garbage disposal and you don't care. You don't care that I had this, like everything's safe, but there's one wire that's, you know, here or there. They're trained to see the flaws. That's why we hire plumbers to come in, is because they could look in and they know what the problem is. So with a filmmaker, let's say with an audio person, they're trained to not only be able to see and identify and articulate the problems of a film, but they can also solve it. But most people are not trained to be able to identify the problems in your film. The majority, a large majority. And if you get out of the film world and stop trying to impress filmmakers and you just show your films to the general audience, they go, wow, I was really entertained. And you're like, cool. But don't show I mean, if you really want to see if it's foul proof, you show it to people that are trained to see the flaws, and that's going to be helpful. But there's a certain point where you go, okay, cool. Well, I didn't have the budget to make a mansion with the best this and this. I had the budget to make a tiny house. And if you can't know what the difference between a mansion and a tiny house is, I don't even want your criticism. I don't even care for you to watch my film. Because if you're comparing my $25,000 film to a $1.2 billion film like the Avenger or Avatar or something like that, we have a problem. I think you're not being able to see the two different things. They're two different products. You know,
Mhm.
there's a difference between a McDonald's burger and then like like a burger that's really made by a fancy chef. And
Mhm.
so one thing about film and film audiences, and especially filmmakers, is we have not drawn the line in the sand to say the difference between a film and a film, because union films are not indie. Well, indie films are now union. Indie films start at like $5 million, which is crazy. So like people say low budget, 1.2 million. It's like, that's low budget. You guys aren't creative. In fact, I don't think there's a creative bone. I can make you a good film for $5 million. You know how good of a DP I could get, and a good writer and a good director? I could produce you a good film for $5 million. I think the talent is when you can make a film that's good for very little. And those are the filmmakers I really respect, because they're the punk rockers, the hip hoppers that are like, yo, we're just going to make it and we're sick of waiting around or going in debt just to make art. And I
Mhm.
think that's what a true artist is somebody that's like, I'm not going to wait. I'm just going to make art because it's coming out of my bones. I have to make art, you know, and I'm sick of being in debt for it.
One of my favorite YouTubers, you've heard of Casey Neistat, right? He's one of my all-time favorites. Like he really showed that you can make something special with like doing it on your own. He's
Totally.
got a really cool video. It was like How to Film by Casey Neistat, and
Hmm.
it's such a simple and just like it's such a short video too. Like everyone should go watch it. And
Yeah.
he starts it off with saying he compares two films, and one was this film that he saw at a film festival like many years ago, and the budget was like not even like $10,000 or something like
Sure.
that, and they edited it on iMovie, and they used, like, this really, like, crappy camera, and he said it won, like, best film at this festival, and then he
Hmm.
compared it to like I guarantee you probably don't remember this movie. It was a Peter Pan movie called Pan. It starred Hugh Jackman, and it cost like a ridiculous amount of money. It cost like $400 million, and he said it had the best actors. It had a really or world renowned like DP and director and everything. He was
Right.
like, nobody saw anything of it. It was critically panned, didn't make it to any festivals or anything.
Right.
And his point was like, if if the best films were made with the most money, then like no one would have a chance. Like these guys would
Totally.
always win. So, and
Totally.
I love that, and I've kept that in the back of my mind, like, and I think this is a good segue to talk about Leg Day.
Hmm.
Um, so so Leg Day is essentially your creation. It's a game that you play at the Thunderdome,
Well, Kick the
and
Ladder is the game,
Pick the Ladder,
and
sorry,
Leg
I
Day is the event that we have Leg Day at. Or
mhm.
yeah. So
And, you can't see you it's, like, right here, but I have these frames hanging up,
oh yeah,
and,
yeah.
so, Isaac, tell me, like, what those frames mean and what, love for you to
Yeah, I should
explain
have
what Kick the Ladder is.
let me grab well, yeah, anyway, Kick the Ladder is a game, a filmmaking game I've been developing that is you take 3 dice that are all associated with certain rules. So the first die is the number, the second die is what that number corresponds to. So you could be like 4, and then you roll the other dice and it'll be like locations. And then the third die, which is a 20-sided die, will have one like camera restriction, which would be like shot on a tripod entirely, include a slow motion shot, or include a clock that's unaltered at 11:48. So like you have to work those rules in. So you could do four locations all handheld. And within that, it comes up with a hashtag, which is KTL, with kick the ladder, then 4-3 or 4-5H. So 4-5 would represent locations, and then H would represent handheld. So it'd be KTL 4-3-4-5H, and that would be a hashtag that you could click on any social platform and watch all the films that were uploaded within those rules. So it's been a great game. I think since the start of it, which was June of last year, I think we've made over 800 films, which is crazy. So
And because of this game, I've made, I think, about, pretty much 20 films at this point that
yeah, and
I
they're all
wouldn't have made
great.
because of this game.
Yeah, and they're
But,
great. I love your
so
stuff.
for those of you, thank you. For those of you that just thought Isaac did, expert algebra right in front of you, it's really not that complicated. It's
Yeah.
just as simple as like make a film with 5 people, use the
Yes.
slow-mo shot, and turn it in by next Monday. It's
Yeah, so
really just
you
that
have a week
simple.
to do it. Yeah, you
Yeah,
have a week to do it, and if you submit by the week, you could upload it on, or you could premiere it at Leg Day, which is the event to show those films. So some nights we have like 20 to 50 films in one night that are all a minute long or minute or less. So people come and they go to the garage at the Thunderdome, and it's usually pretty packed out. I mean, you've been there. It's funny because I actually announced that the last one was the last one here before the COVID kind of blew up, and we
mhm,
actually had to open the garage door and have the screen outside of it to fit everyone in, because it's like standing room only at this point. I think we've gotten like 60 to 80 people around like almost every week.
mhm.
So yeah, it's been wild. And so what I'm trying to do is actually make Kick the Ladder go more global. And actually this COVID thing is a great kind of opportunity to kind of get people to start making films by themselves. And I think really, if I had to summarize one thing that is my whole MO or my goal in life, is to just let filmmakers know what they're capable of. And I think a lot of people are sitting at their house right now and they're like, oh, I wish I could make a film. I wish I could make a film, but I don't have $5 million and I don't have 80 people to help me. But what we're already seeing right now is people are already realizing that they're capable of making a good film for very little money or no money, just in their house because they're staying at home because of this quarantine thing. And so people are making good quality films by themselves. And I think a lot of lights are coming on in a lot of people's heads and going like, oh, I can make a good film with, I don't need all the things that I was told that I needed. And I think that people are starting to embrace that, or if anything, they're going to embrace that in a few months or in a few years. We're going to see a boom of solo filmmaking and people just kind of minimalist filmmaking or very few crews, and coming together and just making more films. Because
Mhm.
if you're making a film in one weekend and you have 20 people on your crew, then that's one film gets made. But if you could teach all 20 people to make their own film, then you have 20 films getting made. And so when people assume that it's like selfish or doesn't play well with others when you're kind of like when I'm promoting solo filmmaking, it's actually the opposite. I want to see as many films coming out. I want to have a wave or a flood of solo films coming out where people are like, oh my gosh, you can make good films for very little. I want to push those limits. And I think Kick the Ladder has been doing that in a lot of ways and kind of letting people focus on the objective. And when they do that, their subconscious is starting to play with it. And you've been to a lot of them, the majority of them, and you could see how the fingerprint or the individual expression of each filmmaker is coming up to the stage and showing their film. And you know what you're getting, you know kind of what they're exploring or how they see the world a little bit more, which I think is what true art is. It's not this like low risk, high money, like all those things. It's actually like, no, we're going to risk it. And we're actually going to put ourselves like jump off the cliff or kick the ladder essentially to like see what comes up when we just start making films instead of overthinking of it and stuff like that.
You showed, 2 videos one night at Leg Day that I thought was a beautiful example, of, like, what Kick the Ladder represents in solo filmmaking. You showed one guy skiing down a hill and,
Mm-hmm.
like, going up a ramp, and, of course, he kills it. He's, like, professional, like, you
Yeah, it
can
was
tell. It's, like, on
the world
ESPN.
record, the longest jump of a skiing.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
even by the title, you're like, "Oh, he's gonna kill it,
yeah.
obviously." But then you showed a little girl going down. That was her very first time, I think, wasn't it?
It was like an 8-year-old girl doing like 30 meters or 40
Mhm.
meters or something like that.
And she goes down, and you kinda have this you start getting this feeling in your stomach. You're like, "Oh my god, I want her to make it." Like, she's a little girl, and she's going down this huge hill that even I wouldn't go down, and
Right,
she
right.
makes it, and you hear her go like, "Yay!" And
Yeah,
her,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
dad or mom is there, like, going, "You did it, honey. Oh my gosh."
Right.
And you're like, "Yes!" Like, I feel like that's what Kick the Ladder represents.
Totally.
It's like, we've had plumbers and roofers, like, come in and
Mhm.
make films, and it's so cool that you're showing people, like, like, a construction worker, he can play guitar, nobody will bat an eye, but if a
Right.
construction worker were to say, like, "Oh, I'm gonna go make a film this weekend," you'd probably, like, give him kinda some kinda weird eye.
Right.
How do you explain, like, for the future of filmmaking, do you see it becoming more normal to say that?
Yeah, so what I've been doing is paying attention to every other medium of art. And what do
Mhm,
all other mediums art that film doesn't? So film has been around for like 124 years. Like we have not been around for a long time. And it started with a very expensive medium. So like it literally started from two millionaires making a bet on a horse and whether or not the horse's legs lift up. So it started
mhm,
as $1 million bet. And so or maybe not the bet was 1 million, but for millionaires. And then it started with big cameras that were very expensive because the process of making film was very expensive. So it was only for the rich. And if you watch that over the years, it got cheaper and cheaper. And the more that the technology of cameras got better, the less people you needed on set to help out. And then even with film noir, which was just like filmmakers getting the leftover budget from the A movies, they would have like one light to use and very little stuff, and they were very limited. And that's why you have the film noir look, which is now a genre. And it's because of low budget filmmakers trying to be creative on making films. So if you watch that, and now in the past 10 years, 15 years, cameras have been accessible where more people have been growing up with their parents' cameras and playing around with those and stuff like that. Like Spielberg did that in the 60s with his dad's 8mm camera, but most families didn't have a 8mm camera. So eventually, when cameras got cheaper, more people, it was more accessible. And now we're at this point where anyone can make a film. And within that, if you compare this with all the other mediums of art, you could do every medium of art as a hobby, but film has never really figured out the hobbyist yet. Because if you're a filmmaker, you're pursuing it your whole life, right? But if you want to
Mhm.
go on a date night and do pottery or glass blowing, or if you want to go on do sip and paint and painting, and if you want to just freestyle in your car with your friends, or if you want to just sing karaoke, if you want to do any medium of art, you could do that. But film is for filmmakers. And I don't think that that's a good, I think we're missing out on a entire voice of people. And also film is just now figuring out what lower class filmmaking was, or what it is, or what it can be, of like people that can't afford a set decorator, but how the union does a film where it's like, okay, this character lives in a trailer park. So what they're going to do is they're going to rent out a whole studio. They're going to have a carpenter come in for a few weeks and build the structure for a trailer. They're going to have a set decorator go to a thrift store and buy all these stuff and buy curtains and spray it with stuff so it looks like it was smoked in for 20 years. And 3 weeks later, they're going to have a very good looking trailer home. But you could just go to a trailer park and say, I'll give you $50 to film here. And they will be thrilled. And they will talk about that for the rest of their lives and say, yeah, somebody came in here and filmed a movie. You want to see it? People are thrilled about that. But what we've done is we figured out how to bleed as much money from people from filmmaking. And I think I want to get money out of the equation as much as possible, because anyway, the film has not lend itself to hobbyists. And what's cool about Kick the Ladder is I think like we've had I think around 100 or 80 to 100 debuts, which is part of the game, is that you earn a frame for doing certain things. So if you make a film, you earn a frame. And if you've debuted and you never made a film before in your entire life, you earn a frame. And we've had people that work at banks, we've had roofers, we've had EMTs and diesel mechanics making films, and some of them keep coming back. Some of the debut people have been the ones that are most dedicated and really understanding what it is to express themselves. And I love that, because a lot of people are starting to see how freeing it could be to just trust yourself and just make films and not overthink it. And it's just really cool. So
Mhm.
I don't know if that answered your question, but
No, it totally does.
okay, cool.
Yeah, Kick the Ladder, that genuinely, I remember the very first one that I made, um, that or the very first film that I made was a Kick the Ladder, participation thing. I remember it was 2 trampolines, the very first, like, big, like, "I'm gonna make this, I love the '80s, I've always wanted to make an '80s
Sure.
romantic comedy." I remember I made it, and for the first time in my life, after I hit record to stop it, or I stopped hitting record, I was like, "I did it." That was the very first time I ever made a film where I was like, "I have no regrets." Like, there was not one thing that I thought about. I was like, everything
That's
was in
awesome.
focus, everything, like,
That's
just
so
worked
cool.
out,
Yeah.
and I was like, I would have never done that if I kept making films.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the more you make something, like, the better you get, and I
Totally.
think that's such a beautiful thing about Kick the Ladder is not on you're not saying, like you're not giving people a month to make a film. You're
Right.
giving everyone a week,
Mhm.
and some people, like, complain about that, like, "Eh, why not a week and a half or 2 weeks? Like,
Right, right.
why can't we have all this time?" And I feel like that just defeats the purpose of the game. It's like,
Totally.
if like, let's say you were a professor and you had 2 students, and you told one, like, "I want you to make 1 film for this whole year, and by December 31st, you have to premiere it." Oh, and you have another student, and he has to make a film every week, and then on December 31st, he's gonna show all his films. Like, which filmmaker do you think is gonna have the better films by the end of the
100%.
year?
Totally.
Like,
Who do you
I
want to
feel like
hear talk than the person that's like practice talking their whole life, instead of the kid that's just learning how to speak, you
mhm.
know? Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Like, I really do think this game should be in schools, I think it should be in colleges. Like, that's how I think filmmaking should be taught 'cause, I was an advertising major in college, and I took a few film classes, but I literally only made, like, probably 3 films
Right.
during the entire,
Totally.
like, semester, And then within that time, I made like 10, like with Kick
Right.
the Ladder, which is
Yeah.
nuts.
It's kind of like how 90% of Christians never read the Bible. Like, I feel like 90% of filmmakers never made a film. They just went to film school, and now they're in debt, and now they're sitting on a cherry picker next to a light, waiting
Mhm,
for it to blow. Like, why did you get into film in the first place? Like go after it, do it, go make
mhm.
films. Like, stop overthinking it. Like, I don't know. it, I,
Um,
I say this a few times, is the idea of, if you tell somebody like, I want to drive for NASCAR, and then somebody's like, well, what you need to do is learn how to work in a pit crew and change a tire in 3 seconds flat. That's what you need to do. And you're like, okay. And then you go to school to learn how to be in a pit crew. And then you have to pay debt for a long time. So you are obligated to work in the pit crew because you can't really take the risk to work on your skills to eventually pay for it. Like,
mhm,
or to eventually like take the risk and start driving. Or like the idea of like, you should buy a Ferrari. First day you want to get on a car, it's like, no, buy a stupid, dumb $650 Craigslist car and like learn how to drive on that. Don't start big. Like, why is everyone's first film they're trying to do like $500,000? It's as crazy as reading books on poker playing and saying and doing like school for poker playing and never playing with your friends, never playing poker with your friends, and just saying, I need investors to go to Vegas because there's $1 million pot and it's $100,000 entry fee. And you go to investors and you say, I've been studying poker my whole life and I would love $100,000. And then you go to Vegas and then they say, bets to you. Here's your ante up, blah, blah, blah. And you're like so thrown off because you've never played poker intuitively. You've only done it rationally. So you've only played
mhm,
poker with one side of your brain. And I think most filmmakers have only made films with one side of their brain, and they've never really explored actually making a film. But they've probably made a film in their head a bunch of times. And this is what I would do if I had a camera. And if I had, oh man, the reason I'm not making a film right now is because I don't have enough money to do. And it's like, well, write a cheaper film. Stop making movies about UFOs if you can't afford it. Like, if you're a creative, if you have that on your Instagram profile and you say creative, then start being more creative with, come up with a new formula. The formula that the union's giving us is really not a good formula. It's the way the union is built is to make money for a lot of people. And I think it's doing a wonderful job at that. And I think it's great. Go ahead and do that. But if you ever watch the movie producers is these producers of theater have figured out that if they get $1 million investment for a play, they have to pay it back if the play is successful. But if the play is a failure, they don't have to pay the $1 million back. So what they do is they purposely try to make a failure of a play. And I think that when people are saying, like, why are we making Sharknado? Why are we making these films that are failing? Or like Mall Cop 4? Why are we making bad films? And it's because, let's say you're an investor and I say, I need $5 million for a film. And you give me that $5 million. Now I pay myself my day rate and I get my $3,000 a day for 6 months. And then I get all my friends to get their day rates for however much money. And it doesn't matter if the film makes any money, because I got my day rate and I can move on to the next film. And that's what filmmaking is right now. And I think that's garbage. I hate that, because what people are doing is just taking one person's idea and trying to bleed as much money from it as possible. Even distribution companies. Let's say I take my film that I made and I sell it to a distribution company. In the contract, they don't pay me until they started making their money back. So let's say they have an agreement to pay me a certain percentage, but then in their marketing or their booking, as they say, well, it cost us $100,000 to make the trailer. It cost us $100,000 to hire the marketing team for your film. It cost us $20,000 to make the poster. Next thing you know, they've made a ton of money from your film, but they've never technically paid off your film because it's now $250,000 to promote your film. And they're not promoting your film, but they lump it into the marketing thing. They say, well, technically, because we're a company and we have our own website, when we market our website to Facebook, we're marketing our website, not your film, but your film is part of our website. So that is lumped into the filmmaking or the money it costs to promote your film. And so you don't make any money from that. So what people are doing is they take one script and then they get as much money from it as they can. And they don't care if it's successful or not because they're making money. And that is sick to me. I hate that because film to me is like a childhood, like the most purest thing. It's my first language. It's a thing that made me find out who I was as a 10-year-old boy, just trying to figure out what I was and what I liked. And I got to explore the world and learn about reality through film and through a camera. In finding out over 15 years of doing films and exploring films and then finding out about the union and how it works and how it's literally like, hey, Trevor, you want to get $600 a day to sit in a cherry picker next to a light? I don't care if the film makes money because I'm going to give you your $600 a day. And then next thing you know, the film never gets seen by anyone. And I don't even make the film that I wanted to because they took all my ideas and they had so many people overseeing it and saying, no, what you need is you need a good visual effects supervisor because I want to get my friend a few more dollars. And of course, there's good people in the union. I'm not saying it's totally corrupt, but the purpose of the union is to make money. If you want to make money doing films, join the union. You will get your money. That's wonderful. I'm fine with that. That's not my bag. I don't care. I want to make films that resonate with me, and I want to make films that they will show at my funeral or that they will show my kids. That's what I want to make. And those films usually aren't attached to a lot of money. Those films, the films that are really show my fingerprint are the ones that I made the least amount of money. The ones that I did out of my own pocket. And I think that that's the best art out there. Not the stuff
You've
that's
made a feature too, right?
Mm-hmm. I've produced about 6 of them, but none of them came out yet.
So the one that you're working on right now, student teacher,
Mm-hmm.
this goes into what you were saying. I remember you told me when you were making this, you had a lot of people telling you, like, Isaac, you have to have this, you have to have this, and you told them no, and then
Mm-hmm.
people were saying, dude, this isn't going to be successful. What did you say to those people?
People, well, they never said it wouldn't be success. Well, they said that like, oh, my crew's going to be overworked and they're going to be getting like having things that weren't asked of them to do, and they're going to have to do that, and everyone's going to be overworked and stuff like that. Now, by the way, we wrapped on time every day. And that's really awesome. I think we've wrapped early sometimes, so nobody was overworked. Overworked is like 16-hour days where people are getting paid, but they're dying on the way home because they're falling asleep at the wheel, which is a real problem in the union. So like I said, I wanted to DP and direct, and people just had a fit. And it's because and I get it. People are scared because they're afraid of losing their job security. Like if you're getting $600 a day for sitting in a cherry picker and you see this podcast, you're going to be furious at me. You're going to be mad that I'm even speaking out against it. And it's fine. Like I'm not threatening you. I'm not even trying to obliterate the union. I'm trying to give an alternative to the union. And I want to tell filmmakers, you can make a film without going in debt. That's something that I think filmmakers don't realize. I wish I actually didn't I listened to filmmakers just enough to be in debt for my film. But if I did it all again, I would actually make it cheaper. But I listened to too many voices, and now I owe like 25 grand. So like it sucks because I was debt free my whole life, and now I'm in debt because I had to listen to other people's idea of what filmmaking is instead of kind of creating or being more creative and figuring out cheaper ways to do something. Not with screwing anyone over, not with, so I listened to too many voices, but and at the same time, I did say, no, I'm going to do it this way because I've probably made 10,000 hours of footage. I have 10,000 hours of footage for sure, raw, because I've done this since I was 10. So since 1998. So now I have so many films that I made where I was the director and DP, like short films, music videos. I was a director or DP of that 450 person extra crew or the cast, and I was the director and the DP of that. But when I decided to make a feature film, everyone was really just upset at, or not everyone, but it felt like a lot of people were opposed to me even doing a feature and directing and DPing. But it's like, well, if I did all these short films that way and music videos that way and documentaries this way, why is the difference between a 10-minute or 20-minute film I could direct and DP, but if that film gets any longer, I'm not allowed to? It didn't make sense to me. So I was like, no, I'm going to direct and DP because this is where I'm most comfortable. And also, I don't have the budget to pay for another person. I don't have a budget to pay for another mouth. Like, I'm paying my crew, and I paid all my crew and cast, and I'm really proud of that. But at the same time, because of that and because it was coming out of my pocket, I'm not going to compare my filmmaking to somebody that's getting $5 million to spend money on all their friends. I would love to hire all my friends. If I got $5 million for film, I wouldn't do a solo thing and pocket all that money. I would love to be like, yo, Trevor, I want you to sit in a cherry picker.
All about the cherry. That's what I'm going to call this episode. The cherry picker. The cherry picker hater.
Yeah. I would love to pay my friends. But if you're spending your own money, let's say you're going to Disney World and you're renting a bus, and every time you bring somebody onto the bus, it costs you $200 per day. Are you going to be like, hey, everyone, come on the bus, I don't care what you do? Or are you going to be like, okay, who do I really want on this? You know, and I think that that's what I started doing. And the fact that people oppose that, I don't think they're creatives. I'll just say that. I don't think you're a creative person if you followed one formula, the only formula that the film industry has ever given us. There's not more than one formula. Come on. Really? Like, there's just one formula out there, and because you're following a formula, you're a creative? I don't think that's creative. Creative is coming up with your own formulas in a lot of ways, not exclusively, but like, if you can't think out of the box even a little bit, you know, you're a film worker at that point. And there's merit, and I'm not even saying that as a bad thing. There's total respect for film workers, but like, there's filmmakers and film workers. You know, the person that changes a light bulb, I don't know if you're a creative. You're not a creative until you're creating something, you know?
And that's something that I would like to talk about is like, I feel like when you say the word creative to the average person, they probably think like, you know, the final product, like, how does that look? How does like what's in front of the camera or what's on your canvas? Like, how does that look? Like, how do you use color and stuff like that? But I feel like the real creative people are the ones that do the best behind the camera and the stuff that you don't see. And I feel like you like, that's like your philosophy behind filmmaking.
Yeah, I think the process is just as important as the final product. I think that's like I think that's with everything. How are you treating people along the way? What are you doing? Like, if it starts raining, if something happens, if something breaks, how are you treating people when the camera breaks? How are you treating people when something happens? How are you still pursuing your objective goal as a filmmaker in the story you're trying to tell when the sun went down? Can you still tell that story with the variables changing? And I think that that's the best basketball players are the ones that have a variable change, and then they figure out a way to make that work. You know, it's like 3 seconds left and you have the ball and you're on the other side of the court. That's a good basketball player. Anyone could shoot a basket if they're sitting under the thing, but the point of the game is actually having all those variables in your way and the obstacles. The difference between soccer and basketball is the restrictions. Like, if you're just in a void and you're just there, you're like if you take a person in the middle of outer space and they're just there, they don't become anything until you start putting the restrictions, and you put a basketball court or a soccer field and you put a ball in their hand. And that's the difference between soccer and film is the restrictions. One of them, or the objective too. you know, so like paying attention to the objectives and stuff. I think you're probably that's probably not your question. You're trying to
That's fine.
segue to the
And like
year.
I would say like LeBron James and Michael Jordan. Like I would say those are creative people. And like I've heard this
Absolutely.
said a million times. Like Michael Jordan, he was as fast as everyone else. Like no, like there were people that were faster. There were people that could jump higher than him. There were people that could like dunk better than him. But it was the way
Yeah.
he was able to play the game like differently than everyone else. And same with
Yeah.
LeBron James. Like sure, he's
Hmm.
got a height advantage and he weighs more than like
Sure.
the average NBA player. But Steph Curry, like he's a tiny dude and he's like able to zip past everyone because he's
Totally.
creative.
Yeah, and he figured out like maybe I'm not a dunker. Maybe I should work on my 3-point shot.
Mhm.
Like you start being real with yourself of what restrictions you have and what you have in front of you, and you go, maybe I shouldn't be dunking. Maybe I should figure this out. You know, like I always think of I forgot Scott Allen or something like that who shot the free throw shot like the granny shot. And it was within the rules, but everyone in the NBA is like, no, that's not our formula. We don't respect that. But it was still part of the rules. And that's a
Mhm.
more efficient way to do a foul shot. So, like, people don't want efficiency. They want what is collectively accepted. And
Mhm.
that happens with every domain. What's funny is I've been learning how to do blacksmithing, and like an anvil, you could get a $10,000 anvil and you could get a $30 anvil. And there's people within the anvil industry or blacksmithing that are like, oh, you don't have a forged anvil. And oh, you know, you should. And then there's other people that are like, hey, you should just use a railroad tie. And that's, you know, something like, do what you got to do. You just need a hard piece of metal to bang stuff on. But like other people are like, you need a forged anvil if you're ever going to be respectful as a blacksmith. And what's funny is that's in every single domain. There's people that are like, you need this camera, you need this, you need these pair of shoes, you need Nikes, you need these skateboard, you need these shoes. And it's just like, get out of here. Like all that stuff is just go skateboard, go play basketball. It doesn't matter what all this stuff, you know, like it does matter. But if you realize, okay, I'm making jewelry, I don't need a $10,000 forged anvil. I need a railroad tie, you know,
Mhm.
like you just figure out like what is the purpose of the thing. So with a camera, it's like, well, what am I trying to do here? Am I trying to do like a 6K footage, or am I trying to make a YouTube video? If a YouTube video, maybe I don't need a Arri Alexa or you know, like a red weapon. Maybe I just need a A7S or whatever it is, you know.
You and I
So
had a conversation a few months ago about the beauty of limitations, and we brought up like Vine. Like Vine, I feel like was so much better whenever it came out. Not
mhm,
because I'm like being a boomer about it, but like it was just like literally all it was your camera and how many times you could like hit the button to record. And that was so beautiful. And then they integrated like uploading, and I think that's what ruined it. And I feel like
totally.
that's what Kick the Ladder is too, is
Hmm.
how many people have come up to you and have complained about the rules or the limitations? Like there's one rule you can only use your phone, and a lot of
Hmm.
people I've heard complain about that, like,
Yeah.
"No, I got a freaking Arri Alexa that I wanna
Right.
use. Like, why
Yeah.
would I wanna use my phone?" And what do you say to those people?
Then go make a film without your phone. Like, you don't have to show it here. The thing is like if you want to make a film that premieres at Sundance, you got to make it political and see like hit what Sundance is trying to do. But if you're trying to show something at Leg Day, you got to follow those rules, and that's with the case of any film festival or any premiere or anything like that. I'm not. If you own a great camera, and I say, hey, you have to shoot this with your phone, and you're like, oh, well, I can't. And it's like, well, go make a film. Like, what's stopping you? I'm not stopping you from making a film. I'm stopping you from showing a film shot on a red at the
Mhm,
cell phone day. Because it's like, yeah, like I think people just don't get it. It's kind of like people are like, if you go to a freestyle rap battle and say, okay, we're gonna rap about corn on the cob. And then it's like, well, I don't want to rap about corn on the cob. I want to rap about this. And it's like, well, go rap about that. Go, just you're not here. Don't go. Like the reason that the audience is here in the first place, and the reason that everyone here in the audience is interested is because
Mhm.
all of us are curious of what humans could do with those limitations.
Mhm.
That's what people are interested in. And if we know what the objective is as an audience, it's way more interesting to us. So we go, oh, it's cell phone night. I want to see what all these veteran filmmakers are doing with their cell phone. Because if you could, I really think like anyone could make a good shot with an Arri or a Red. Sure,
Mhm.
like you could pull it out of the box and just turn it on. And even if you shoot it wrong, you could edit it in post because it's raw. You show me what you shot with a cell phone, and if it's like, then I really could see, oh, he understands lighting, he understands dynamic range, he understands framing, he understands story, he understands the language and storytelling through film. That's interesting to me. Like, people have complained about, oh, it's a 1 minute long. And it's like, okay, well, I'm not stopping you from making your 2 minute film or your 5 minute film. Go ahead and do it. There's a billion platforms. You want to upload on YouTube, on Vimeo, on GodTube, or whatever the heck. I don't care.
God,
World
dude.
Star. You could work like nobody's stopping you. YouTube's not stopping you from. When I started YouTube, you had a 10 megabyte limit. Then it went to a 100 megabyte limit, and it was 10 minutes long. You had to be a part of the partner program, a director, and sign up and stuff to get over 10 minutes. That's what YouTube was. So like, yeah, people figured it out. People figured out. I remember watching tons of videos how to render the best quality for a 10 megabyte upload or whatever, because people were trying to figure out how to make it look good. And that's why the really real shows look like garbage, is because like it's just like we had a limitation. I think by that time it was like 100 megabytes.
If I had $1 for every pixel in the Really Real Show, I'd have 50 cents.
Is that a top comment or something?
No, I just
Yeah, you
I
said
used
that
to
last
work at
night
a
and the house
IT
was roaring.
I used to work at an IT firm, and I heard that, and I was like, "That is so funny."
That's
So
great.
anytime I see a low quality video,
Yeah,
I have to say it. It's so
that
funny.
is funny. Um, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so we've mentioned your feature film a couple times throughout this conversation. So, just to not keep everyone guessing, like, what exactly is it? And you gave me some good news before it started too.
Oh yeah. So what is it like? What is it about, or what is the
Yeah,
what do
so the
you
film is called, Student Teacher, and,
yep.
it's, I'll just let Isaac explain it. I'm not gonna explain it.
So it's a darker film, but it's a film about a high school teacher who struggles with underage pornography, and then he recognizes one of the students from his classroom in the videos that he's watching, and all the evidence he has to save her from her abuse is self-incriminating. So he has to figure that out, essentially. So it's that journey.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm literally I had to tweak the credits and then just rendering it, and just going to be done tonight. So pretty excited
That's
about
awesome,
that.
man.
I'm like at the 55-minute point of just doing like cleanup of audio. It's not going to be the best sounding film in the world, but ran out of money. So I'm just trying to make it not distracting is the goal.
So
So
when did you, what how long ago was it that you wrapped on production?
2017 was the principal photography, and then 2018 I did a pickup shot or a pickup scene. We
Mhm.
kind of reshot a scene, and then just been kind of slowly editing it, and kind of I've been co-editing it with a friend of mine, and we've been passing it back and forth. And then the last few months I've been just kind of tweaking and
Mhm.
stuff like that. So it's weird, man. Like I've wanted to make a feature film since I was like 10 years old. And or actually before I even got my first camera, I was talking about making a feature film. So I was like 8 or 9. And um it's weird because when you wanted to do it for 20 years, there's some sort of like a weird like depression that happens when you're done. Because imagine wanting to do like like go to Disney World for 20 years. So then you go and you had 20 years to think about what it would be like when you finally win, or 20 years to think about what, and you finally are done and you almost don't know what to do with yourself. Like, sure, I want to make more features and I want to keep making films, but you start kind of, and I've actually talked to a lot of first time feature film directors, and they said that they went through the same thing. And there's a certain point of like letting go and finally just being like, I need to just be done with this, because I've started writing like in 2015. Like, and
Mhm.
I had this idea for 10 years. And so it's been like a really crazy psychological journey. And it really changed who I am as a person. I highly recommend people pursuing any of their goals. And if they don't have one, I'd suggest making a feature film, because it really changes you. But I know you weren't asking that, but
No, dude, that's
it's
fine.
been yeah, it's been a really cool process. I learned a ton. I'm really glad I did it. I've always said that making this film was the goal of making this film is to learn how to make a feature.
Mhm.
And I feel like I totally got that goal. And I think because of that is why I was able to make Kick the Ladder, because Kick the Ladder, if you look at all the rules, it's very much preparing you for all the variables and all the things that would come up with making a feature film. So like
Mhm.
having to get a shot with a clock in it at 11:48 means you have to really plan and get ready for that shot. Those things happen on a film set. Like all handheld because you're running out of time, limited crew, limited actors, limited dialogue. If your audio breaks and you have to just still tell the story. So like playing Kick the Ladder after a while would prep somebody to be able to do a feature a little bit easier. And it was because of making my feature that I was able to implement all those rules in, because of all the things I learned and what I actually found out to be really important about making a feature. Um, so,
And I
um,
remember one night you, I think it was the 11:48 rule. You showed a film whenever the eclipse happened, here in the South,
yeah.
and you got a shot, like, you made a film during that eclipse
Oh, that
whenever
wasn't
everybody
me.
else was just
That wasn't
that
my
wasn't you?
film.
Okay, I'm sorry, I
No,
thought it was you.
no, sorry. I did make a joke after because it's such a good film, and at the end, I
Uh
was like, "Man, that was really hard to make." But yeah, so sorry about that. It's called Souls of Totality, I think it
Mhm,
is. But look it up. It's on Vimeo, and it's so good. And it was literally during the eclipse, and they got the
mhm,
shot where the sun gets blocked off, and it's a one take, and it's so well done. It's so well timed, and it's amazing. And so when people figure out like storytelling in that way, where it's like, let's get this whole scene when this plane's flying over us, or let's get
mhm,
this whole scene when the New Year's Eve ball is dropping, or whatever it is, like those sorts of things are like the magic that comes out of that is so cool. And that is stuff that's happened in the past of my career, like just making a film with like a train going by and it's like, okay, we got to film this, go, go, go. And like those sorts of things that kind of give that magic of filmmaking, which I love about filmmaking. So,
mhm.
but yeah, that's a really good film. But yeah, similar thing. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, and I'm really sorry, I thought it was you for some reason. I guess I forgot you said, "By the
that's
way,
a
I didn't
huge
make
compliment.
that."
Huge compliment.
I mean, I
I
wouldn't
wish it was
you're a
me.
great filmmaker.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah.
Um, so, we've been going for a little over an hour. Isaac, like, thank you so much for coming on, and I think I
Yeah.
wanna wrap this up with, so I wanted you've been making these little inventions for filmmaking,
Yeah.
and, so I kinda wanted to bring it up when we were talking about being creative behind the camera as much
Oh,
as in
right.
front.
Yeah.
So, would you mind doing a little show and tell real quick?
Yeah. Let me grab them real quick. I'll be real quick.
Okay, cool. What's going on, everybody? You gotta wait for Isaac to come all the way back. It's gonna take him like 5 minutes, and I hope you're still watching. You're not gonna tune out. Whoa.
Okay.
What is that?
That's the Clive cart I'm working on. This one
Cool.
here, I'm actually using my phone as my hotspot because Xfinity is using COVID as an excuse to not give us good Wi-Fi.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
so this here I call the Cardellini cam, which
Mhm.
is using a Cardellini clamp and a macro tube to project on a diffusion paper. And what you do is you clamp your phone right here, and then the phone screen goes into this, which is a
Whoa.
viewfinder that is projected. This viewfinder is from a camera, like a video camera. So, and that's focused onto the diffusion paper that's the lens is projecting onto that. And so that kind of gives, this was created for the restriction on Kick the Ladder was using a cell phone. So I was like, well, it's using a cell phone, so let me try and figure out a cool way to make a cell phone look cool. So that's that. I'm currently using my camera for this live podcast. So I can't really show this. This is what I call the gadget cam. So the camera will sit here, and this spring is on the camera. So it goes like this. You could see this on my YouTube as I demonstrate this better. But you have a flashlight.
Everybody go check that out.
You have a flashlight that will shine into the lens.
Mm-hmm.
You have a prism that comes down. Oops. It's a prototype. You have a prism that comes down and it goes into the lens, which has a cool look. And then you have this, which will take the lens and free lens it. Hold on.
Oh man, he's gone again.
So this lens is attached to the camera on a hinge. And so this is attached to the bottom, and then that trigger will move the lens and let light in and make it go out of focus and stuff. So within all that, it's just kind of makes it really cool. So I shot probably my favorite shot in my whole career the other day with that thing. It was really cool.
Was it the one with John Selden?
No, I went downtown with Audrey, my fiance, and we just shot around downtown, and it was really cool.
I can't wait to see it.
That, and then this is the Clive cart, but I don't know if you have time for that one.
No, like we can talk for as long as I guess I just kind of like it in the hour range, but dude, this is like this is good stuff. So keep going.
People probably turning it off anyhow if they're not. So let me switch the audio. Yeah, if people are bored, they could turn it off at this point. So let me change the audio here. It might get feedbacky. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello? Okay.
I can hear you.
Sweet. So I'm making a video right now. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the video. This is the solo filmmaking, basically.
Whoa.
It's really kind of tough to see. Let me see if I could kind of. So this actually is cool. This is one of them that I made, which is how I did this whole podcast. And this is a cigar box with a monitor here. And then this is a two-way mirror that has a little spot for a hole. And so the whole time I was looking at the mirror, but it was actually like looking at the lens. So this is my like podcasting camera setup.
That's awesome.
And then I used the old like thing so I could use this and slide it around. So yeah. So this here is the Clive cart. Basically, you have everything you need to make a film with this. You have your audio. So this has an H6 on a magnet. I don't know if you can see that. So you have an H6 on a magnet. Can you see that?
Yeah. That's awesome.
So H6 right here. You have your microphone on this. This clamps and you can take it off. And I could actually like set this like next to the actor on a table or whatever. I have a magnetized little box here, which has all my audio stuff. So I could actually take the H6 and go aux into the H6 from my camera, or from the H6 into the camera. So that's a little magnetized little Pelican sort of thing here. That goes here. So we got audio. We have a little tripod here, or like a little tripod head here, so I could put a camera on this, set up the settings. I have the quick release plate, which is the same as this, which is the monopod. You got a monopod.
That's cool.
This light here, dang it, it needs a new battery because I've been burning it. But yeah, you could turn on this light here, which is a C-stand. And this goes up pretty high. So you have a light that you could put anywhere. You have on
That's
the
so
back.
rad.
You have color-coded lenses. So if somebody's helping out, you could say, hey, hand me the red lens or the green lens, the 50 millimeter lens or the yellow, and the gray lens. So you have color-coded lenses and cup holders. You have a Leatherman here, so like a multi-tool. You have your A clamps here, and then you have the smaller ones here. So you have 4 of each. Then you have a little plug here, and so with the plug, let's see here. So the plug is attached to battery chargers. So you have the battery chargers here. So you could have the A7S on it. And those are permanently on there. So when you're plugged in, it's charging your batteries.
Nice.
I have a little shot bag here. So this is a shot bag, which is not sandbag. It's all lead. So this is a 35-pound, basically a sandbag. So it's very sturdy once you're set up. You actually have it very sturdy for the C-stand here. You have a bungee cord. Then you have, here is one of my favorite things. Here you have a little laser pointer, so I could use it for directing and saying, hey, stand there, move that to here. So I have that slid in there.
That's cool.
I have a little magnetized marker for an actor, so I could set this on the ground, and when I'm done, it could just magnetize to the cart.
So convenient.
Then I have an Apple box here attached on. Let's see here. Let me try and... Can you see that? Oops.
Yeah, I can see it pretty well.
Yeah, so you have your Apple box, regular Apple box. And then I have a baby pin here. So I could easily take off this light and baby pin it onto here. I have a basic extension cord that I could spin here to release. So that attaches pretty nicely onto that. So I could set this on the ground, have the light on the ground there. I have my camera bag here. I have a soft box for the light. I have duvetine here. So these are 2 different black stuff to cover up a window. This is a window size, standard window size, and maybe a little smaller to make a flag or whatever. I have a scuba diving sandbag, which is a small little weight bag, like 3 pounds. What's great is I actually could use this to prop up the camera, like right there. So now it's more stable, and it's a small little bag, which I really love. What's cool here, let me actually get a battery real quick.
Oh man, I'm all alone again.
What's that?
I said I'm all alone again.
Oh yeah. So here the light turns on, right? So so this is not plugged into the wall. This is on a battery. So you have also your gaff tape. You have a light, just a practical, like a little light bulb. I have CRLS, which is a reflective light system. So I have that. Then I have big ones too.
Mm-hmm.
So I have, you can see how it's like kind of set up in there.
That's cool.
Um,
I'd love for someone to tune in right now to be like, "What the hell are you doing?"
yeah. Well, what's really cool. So I'm going to use this sandbag. So I have the light here. You can probably see it better now, huh?
Yeah.
So what's cool is I also have a little arm here for the reflector. So I could set this up.
Whoa.
I could set this up to do a little reflection thing if I needed to. And then I could easily do a softbox on the light as well if I wanted to. And then, of course, like I said, you could easily do this. I actually filmed a few short films so far with this, and I've been really happy with it because what I've been doing is you could put the camera on this and slide this, and it looks like a dolly, like if it's a carpet.
Nice.
So I've done some shots where it looks really cool, like where you'd think I had a dolly on set. But so I'm trying to build it where essentially I can make a feature film with just this cart. Mm-hmm. And so that's like kind of the goal here.
So how much do one of those go for?
Well, the idea is I would love to kind of set up the format here so that way other filmmakers make their own version. Because the next thing I want to do is a music video version that will have like Bluetooth speakers on it, like maybe a laptop or an iPad for like playback and being able to like scroll through the song or play it in slow motion or do in and out points, and a few other things. So you could kind of modify it to your own thing. So I'm calling it the Clive cart, and I would love filmmakers to start making their own. And then maybe if we could, like, if more people are making their own, then they could be like, hey, this is my version of the Clive cart. This is with this feature. And the reason I use this instead of this, because these fit all my needs. But I think that each filmmaker has different needs, and each filmmaker goes out, like, wants certain things when they make a film. So this has everything I need to make a good film. And so I think that, and it has a few limitations, but I think that that's kind of the point. And you already I've been using it and getting really creative with what's on it and going, I wonder if I could use this to do this. And maybe I could use this duvetine to slide the camera on a wooden floor. So I put the camera on this, or I put the Apple box on this, and I slide this, and then that makes a dolly shot. So it has everything you need: your clamps, your magnets, your multi-tools, your bungees. Oh, and then another thing, which is one of the rules of it, is everything needs two purposes. So this is also a Apple box. It's a pancake Apple box. And when it's not being used, it's actually just making the floor, the base, a lot more wider so you could put anything on there. And it takes very little time to tear down. So, you got these, and then you could like literally snap it in. And then you have your,
nice.
You can kind of pretty much go. And it's been so fun and so easy to make stuff. And then also audio, once it's pumping in, you have the H6 pumping into the camera directly. And if you're recording on both, sometimes the audio is great enough where you don't even need to source the H6 SD card. But sometimes when you do, it makes the Premiere syncing like happen like this quickly, because you have your camera having a good quality sound or good scratch audio along with the thing. So you don't even need a slate. I've synced a whole short film in like 3 seconds with no slate at all, because I was pumping good audio into the camera, and it was already synced with the H6. And so
Mhm.
if I put the SD card underneath it, it synced like really quickly. So it's actually been really fun. It's very liberating. And what's really cool is this audio is very portable. So, I mean, I just took this off. This is on a
Mhm.
magnet, so I could literally like snap it onto like a thing, and then I have a microphone to play with and set down and stuff like that. So that's
I'd love
something
to
I'm,
go to a festival. I'd love to go to a festival with, where you, submitted a film you shot that with, and somebody raises their hand, they're like, "What'd you shoot that on?" And you're like,
yeah, yeah.
"Well."
Yeah, yeah. If I have the gadget cam and the Clive cart, like just kind of, well, it'd be really cool to just to go to a film festival and have people, whoever made this, to be like making a
Mhm.
film, and it says these are all the actors, and then here's my credit, like everything else. So it's like actors, everything else, Trevor Hancock, like audio, sound, lighting, because you can totally do it. Like it's so possible. And so I think things like this, I'm totally down to do commission. Like if somebody said I had $500 or $1,000 to make a Clive cart, I would love to start doing this as a side hustle, because I think I can make a lot of really cool inventions for filmmakers to liberate filmmakers if they have a specific objective or a certain goal that it's like, every time I make a film, I just wish that this did this. Then I'm like, cool, well, let me figure out how to make that. And that's why I've been getting into woodworking and blacksmithing and stuff like that, so I can combine those kind of mediums into filmmaking.
Mhm.
And that's what this is. And so what's really cool is none of this is taped together. This is very solid. This is like none of it's taped on. You could drop this down the stairs and everything will be safe pretty much, besides like whatever hits the stairs directly. But everything's like really on here. It's where you have to like pull it off, and like the solid, it's just really solid. So feels really
That's
good. You
cool.
can roll it up and down the stairs, and this gets way brighter. So it's like it's crazy. And I'm have my lens at like a completely stopped down. So it's at 16. So this is like
It's pretty
wide
bright.
open. Yeah, it's it's pretty bright.
Jeez.
So it's pretty cool. Yeah. So yeah,
So
it's been
we got a
real.
few comments, Isaac. Chase said, "You're the
Yeah.
Martha Stewart of camera tools." And, Alex Pham said, "The modern Frankenstein."
Martha Stewart and Frankenstein, I guess.
Yeah, which one are you more
Martha
proud of?
Stewart is such a funny reference. There's so many other things to reference in Martha.
That's why I was a little I was like, "What are you talking about,
Oh
Chase?"
yeah, I love that. Yep. So I guess I wasn't looking at the comments. I didn't click that tab, so I should look at that.
Yeah, we've
But
got quite a few. I've gone through a couple of them, but some of them are just comments, not questions.
yeah, like cool shirt, Trevor, stuff like that.
Definitely a cool shirt. But yeah,
Yeah.
Isaac, thank you so much for coming on, dude. Is there anything else you'd like to
Yeah.
add or say before we close?
We're gonna do leg day global soon enough. I'm waiting for a pen. The kicktheladder.com is in my possession, but I have to wait
Mhm.
like 60 days for me even to build on the site. So once the site is built, I'm trying to figure. I ordered a FM transmitter that goes like 3 miles, very loud. So I want to do a leg day drive-in and also probably do like a live broadcast of leg day. And
That'd be
then
cool.
it'll probably be like the people in person will show their films, but I'll probably do like 1 to 3 international films as well and show
Mhm.
that on the live medium. And I think once I start doing that, then Kick the Ladder will have a lot of other like global submissions of people making it from wherever they are in the world. They could go, "Hey, I'm going to make a film," and some weird group in Atlanta is going to show it, and they're going to show it and comment on it and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a fun way to like kind of broaden our like community in a certain way. So I'm pretty excited about that. These are all things I actually had in mind before the whole quarantine COVID thing, but these are kind of expediting that. So the last few months or the last month, I've just been kind of getting all my affairs in order and kind of getting all my finances and films and projects just all finalized so I could really go hard with like kick the ladder and leg day stuff, and trying to figure out like a live medium of that. So that's what's next. And I've been recently embracing like film inventing and inventing things that help filmmakers. And I've realized that kick the ladder is one of those things, and all these different gadget cam and live cam and Cardellini cam are like different inventions. And I have so many more ideas, and I've been really enjoying embracing that. So hopefully liberating more filmmakers to just be like, just use what you got, just make it look cool, you know? So I'm totally down to do that as a side hustle. If anyone wants something specific, I would love to make that. That would be really cool to have like my first gig doing that. I would even do it at cost if just expensive or just on whatever the equipment is or the little gear that I need to buy. But yeah, I think that'd be really fun. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, Isaac, this was fun, dude. I
Yeah.
feel like I was just hanging out with you. Like,
I know, right?
this wasn't
Finally.
super official. Like, this is really how Isaac talks. Like when you hang out with him, it's
Yeah,
really no
just
different.
ran. You just all you had to say is film, and then once you say that, you go, wow, 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 wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I should just host like a caveman next time. I have Isaac on my show. I'll just go film, creative, camera. Just let
Just
you
the
go
button.
off.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theory. We didn't get into
Yeah.
that
We didn't
though.
even touch those.
No, maybe next time. But
Yeah,
thank you,
yeah, yeah.
Isaac. If I had
Yeah.
a sound
Thank
effect thing,
you.
I'd play a huge applause. But thank you so
Yeah.
much. Bye, everyone.
Yeah, it's been fun watching your stuff. It's cool to see what all my friends are doing. So I get to, if I'm curious what all my friends are doing, I just watch your podcast.
Thanks. I'll
So it's
have the
pretty
whole
cool.
leg day community on here one day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Perfect. I love it. Cool.
All
Well,
right, see
thanks
you,
for
man.
doing it. You're doing great, man. I love it.
Dude, thank you
Cool.
so much. It means so much.
Yeah, dude.
Oh man, I'm all alone again.
What's that?